Most tech and cyber startups don't have a product problem. They have a go-to-market problem. Right now, somewhere, a founder is burning $50K a month on ads, SDRs, and events. And guess what? Zero pipeline to show for it. They built something credible. Their tech is real. Their product is legit, but nobody buys it. Here's a brutal truth. A great product with a terrible GTM will lose every single time versus a crappy product with a sharp GTM. Today we're breaking down exactly how the fastest growing companies are working and are going to market. What's working for them right now? What's that? And what's the most operators are too afraid to say out loud? If you are a CEO, a founder, or a revenue operator trying to crack into sales, stay locked in. This episode is for you. Welcome to the Wolfpack Power, the show for founders and operators who want revenue, not theory. I'm Paulo Veloso, and I help multiple startups going from zero to millions. And I'm here to help you. Today's episode, we're covering 3 top things. Why most GTMs fail before they even launch. What exactly frameworks that are actually working right now. And how to build revenue engines that scales without doubling your headcount. Let's get into it. On my regular year, I talk to about 200-300 companies, and I pay attention a lot to their go-to-market. And over the years, I recognize patterns that are what they call the GTM killers. And I want to share those patterns with you. I have 5 most important ones. Of course, there's more, but I want to make sure if you're not doing any of those 5, you're good. Pay attention to those 5. Killer number 1 for me, it's no ICP clarity. I said, oh my gosh, every time I go to a company, I talk to a company, especially startups, the founders come and tell me, we got the ICP. We're good. We know exactly who we're selling to and what we're selling. And then we go and say, okay, tell me more. And they're like, well, we sell to enterprise. I'm like, oh my gosh. That's not an ICP, my friend. That's a prayer. Winning GTM, it's the one that are targeted to a very specific ICP. When I talk specific, I really talk specific. You got to understand the industry. You got to understand the company size. You got to understand the tech stack. And the most important part of it is you got to understand the pain triggers and the buying committee for that company. If you don't know those things, you're going to have a problem. So last week I was talking to a cyber company and they told me, Paulo, we sell to CISOs at financial institutions with 500 to 5,000 employees who just fail a compliance audit. That's a great example. That's specific, that's very important, and they know the pain of their customer. So that specificity changes your messaging, changes the channel that your marketing team is going to go for, and even your pricing. ICP for me, guys, is the foundational of every GTM. If you don't understand your ICP, you don't have the ability to build great messaging. You don't have a great channels to focus on. And sometimes your pricing could be wrong. So finding the ICP needs to be one of the first things you do. And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it would take longer. Sometimes it would take pivots to some of the companies. And it's okay. But I really want you to understand that finding that ICP is something extremely important for your company. And you should do it right now. If you don't have it, again, it's very foundational. Don't fool yourselves on the ICP conversation. And if you don't know it, just go find it. Killer number 2 for me, it's another confusion that goes around a lot, especially in the startup world. Product-led versus sales-led. I could not count in 10 hands how many times I get to talk to companies and they tell me about product-led versus sales-led, but a combination of both. And I'm like, guys, trying to do both with a 4-person team, it's how you fail. What's POG or product-led growth? It's for me, right? It's a low ACV, fast time to value, self-serve onboarding product. I'll give you a full example of this. Canva. Canva is a software that wants to democratize, design to the world. So they're very low ACV. It's $120 a year. It's a fast time to value. You can build your first design in like seconds if you want. And everything is self-serve. Put your credit card here, you get your license, bada bing, bada boom, it's working. So it's a great example of POG. You focus on selling the product, you're selling your features and the easy of it. Compared to a sales-led when you have a higher ACV, which is usually above 50K. You have buying committees. You have compliance and procurement involved. I'll give you an example on the cyber world with CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike is a sales-led company. You need those sales guys. You need those people to talk and sell value to those customers every day and all day. If you don't have that, maybe you won't have a good sales team. Maybe your go-to-market is wrong. But no matter which one of those two, you must pick a dominant motion. When you pick them, lay the others in later. Don't go for both. Pick one, okay? Killer number 3 is something that it's a very more mature market right now. And it's something that a lot of companies are not taking a look at. So the killer number 3 for me is when companies come and say they don't build demand generation, they build lead generation. Let me clarify that for you. Lead generation, it's when you are chasing people who don't know you. You go to an event and you scan their badges, you don't know them. You're chasing that lead because, you want to sell to them. On contrary, when you go to a demand generation strategy, you're being so present and so valuable to your ICP that those guys come to you. I'll give you a very, very direct example of this. I'll tell you this. When I was at Torque, we identified that we needed to go for that demand generation. We needed to have present and value to a lot of our customers. And we built that around another strategy that we're going to talk later about community selling. So we needed to build that value to people right up front. And then they'll talk to us. They'll know us. They know what we do and what we're up for. So that's something that's extremely important and valuable, and you should really pay attention to. So stop doing lead generation and go for demand generation. It sounds the same. A lot of people use as the same, but they're not. So when people talk to you about demand, really go and check if it's demand or lead generation. Right? One thing that's important for you to consider in this killer is there's something that I call the dark social. Dark social is that buyers are now researching you on LinkedIn, Reddit, Slack communities, even before they fill up a demo form for talking to you, even before replying to your cold email. So I want to make sure that whenever you do that, you have that presence as well. All right. So another commonality when I see in companies, what I call the killer number 4 is selling features instead of outcome. More often than ever, especially now in this new AI everything word, is you go to a demo session and the first thing that people say is, our platform uses AI-powered threat detection, real-time telemetry, blah, blah, blah. I give you something. Nobody cares. So if you go tell to the CIO, CISOs, what they hear when you say that, another vendor, another demo, another dashboard, right? That's all they hear from you. What I want you to focus next and try the opposite. You got to try 2 things for me so you avoid this killer. The first thing is don't talk about the product. Talk about the outcomes. What they're going to achieve working with you. What others have achieved working with you. And second is understand their problem before they even talk to you about how you can solve them. Because that's another common thing on this killer is you pretend that you can solve their problem, but you don't even know if they have that problem. So really, really, really focus on those 2 things, please. Right? Outcome-led messaging is the number 1 conversion lever you're probably ignoring. Believe me on this one. And of course, the killer number 5, this is more on the human side, and I really, really close to my heart, is misalignment between sales and marketing. More often than I want to achieve and tell you guys, marketing generate MQLs and sales ignore them. A classic that loop on companies, right? And the problem with that is because you didn't build a revenue team that works and functions as one. So if they don't understand that they get one mission, same values, working together, they're never going to break those silos. And that's up to you and you only, their leader, the revenue leader, the CEO, the founder of the company, to be the first one to align this. Don't avoid it, all right? Now, it's one thing that I want to do a big touch from my heart is I love revenue architecture. I love building revenue teams and revenue architecture for startups or even companies that are more mature that needs to upgrade their revenue architectures. That's what I do. That's what I love doing. And I want to do every day of my life, right? But I call it what I call the 6 layers. If you don't build in a 6-layer perspective, you're not doing a proper revenue architecture. And let me talk to you about those layers. Layer number 1, it's awareness. Content, thought leadership, LinkedIn, podcasts, and dark social presence. Those are the awareness tools that you have to use and you should use. Build awareness on your go-to-market. So one thing that's very important here for all CEOs, CISOs, CTOs, leader, revenue operators, you should be the public voice in that space. You should be the public voice in your company. Not optional anymore. Oh, I'm shy. I'm too busy to build, posts and LinkedIn stuff. You have a marketing team. If you don't, learn yourself. That's no excuse for this. I'm really passionate about this because awareness, it's the number one thing that everybody fails. Remember we were talking about community-led before? Community-led starts with awareness. So if you don't do that properly, you're not good. So please pay attention to this. I guarantee when you build this right, one strong post per week for the revenue leaders and the CEO drives more pipeline than $10,000. Believe me on this one, and you can call me out later if you want. Layer 2 that I want to talk to you about is demand capture. More often than I want to admit, when I look at companies and look at people, they don't capture the demand that they should have. SEO, peer reviews, person pages, and intent data are part of this. I tell you always the same phrase. When someone is ready to buy, you need to be the first thing that they find. If you're not, guess what? Your competitor is. So one thing that's very, very important. Your website is your number one demand capture tool. So if you look at your website and it's a 2-pager published online, that's how bad it is. Man, you should do it. You should redo that. Okay. So don't really underestimate the power of capturing demand over your website. This is your public facing tool. You gotta make sure you demand capture there. It's spot clean. All right. Layer number 3, pipeline creation. Outbound sequences, partner referrals, event follow-ups. That's just the basic stuff, right? But I want to say this, and I want to comment a lot on this, which is no excuses on the day-to-day thing. My sales guys are too busy closing deals that they dare not have time for outbound. Or I'm doing this, the outbound will get second thought. No. One thing that I tell you to everybody is segregate functions. That segregation will give you focus. So yes, you should have outbound every day, daily, no excuse around it. All right. So segregate those functions, make them focus on this, and no excuses for it. I want to do a emphasis on events on this. Everybody says, yeah, events are things that are happening right now. Events are working. And I'm like, okay, but I want to call event, and I don't want to say event is not about badge scans. When you scan a badge, just mean that person was there. Just mean that you had foot traffic, but you're not a brick and mortar store. So foot traffic may not even matter to you. So I'm giving you a 2 rule for event participation. 2 rules that I want you to follow every time you think about event. Rule number 1, write it down. Never attend a conference without 10 meetings already booked. Yes, the first time you do this, you're not going to have 10. The second time, you're getting close. But the third time, there's no excuse. You got to have it. You got to have your team pre-book meetings or you cancel the participation in that event because it's not worth it. All right. The second big rule that I have is don't go if you're not getting out of something that I call the boring land. What's boring land? I'll give you a real life example, right? So every year there's RSA conference in San Francisco, the biggest cyber conference in the world. 44,000 people in one city. And guess what? All the big brands, everybody in cyber is going there. And everybody's doing what? They're doing happy hours, dinners, lunches, all the same old boring land, right? Yes, they need to do it. Every big company, they have enough money to spend on the boring land. But if you're not a big company, guess what? You don't have money to spend on boring land. So you got to think outside the box. You got to have a marketing team that brings you ideas to differentiate yourself. Remember about the unfair advantage that I talked before. If you don't bring unfair advantage into the marketing, you're not winning. You're just the same as everyone. And you know what? You're stuck in boring land. And boring land does not sell. So make sure you get out of boring land. Okay, let's talk about the layer number 4. Layer number 4 is about something that I call the pipeline conversion. And my friends, conversion is king, okay? Everybody talk about top of the funnel, mid of the funnel, down of the funnel. Yes, you gotta have 10 companies here, you have 10 things here, you gotta go down into the funnel and you close that. And I'm like, guys, that's all calling conversion. One thing that I'm very passionate about is our customer journey. When you talk about your customer journey, it's something that you always need to understand is conversion rates in all phases of your journey. Okay. So if you have greater conversion rate, guess what? You need less numbers. So if you have a 3% conversion rate versus a 15% conversion rate in each phase, guess what? You need 5 times less leads to work in order to achieve your objectives. And if you're keeping the same word leads level, guess what? You're making way more. So I want to make sure that every time you think about a funnel, you don't think about numbers. You think about conversion rates. That's the most important part of a funnel is the conversion rate, because then you can determine what numbers you actually need versus numbers you pretend that you're going to have. Make sense? So another point on conversion is using your tools for conversion. Demo experiences, proof of concepts, and pillar pieces for awareness. Those are your tools for amplifying your conversion. But on the demo side, I want to do a call out here. Demo is a sales tool, not a product tour. Product tours are very easy to automate. Demos are not, because you want to use that demo session for discovery. You want to use the demo session as a sales tool for the customer you're talking to. Make sense? So every time you do a demo, every click should connect to a business outcome. Everything you show your customer to say, hey, if you do this, you use for that, guess what? You're going to achieve this. And another customer achieving by doing X, Y, Z. Okay, we're almost there. Layer number 5. It's something that I've been seeing a lot in the market recently. And for many, many, many years, it's not been in the upfront of any go-to-market. And something that I call the expansion and retention strategy. For me personally, over the last 5 years, customer success is becoming one of the most important functions on revenue. The reason for that is it's your lowest cost of acquisition. It's the guys that you need to keep selling to. Those customers already trust you. You don't have the barrier for entry. You don't have incumbent. So you gotta make sure you capitalize on this or you're losing. And this function is one thing that's very important to it. It builds the most important KPI for me personally. And that's something that I'm very, very keen to. It's LTV, lifetime value. If you're not building LTV, you're losing. I'm gonna say that out loud. If you're not building LTV, you're losing. So LTV, it's what all VCs and investors are looking for right now, because that's the hardest KPI to build, all right? So make sure that you don't get your eyes out of your own install base and build those land and expand plays from day one. When you think about your customer journey, when you think about all the way from marketing, the first touch point, the first outbound, you should have a customer journey that goes all the way to land and expand. Don't stop in the first sale. Don't stop in your first commit, okay? Go further. Think about the next phases and building that LTV, all right? And the last one, the last layer, and mostly a very important one, and the most hard one, and may surprise you when I'm gonna say it's people. Right people with right profile for each stage of the company is the hardest thing to achieve. Okay, so every stage of a company, they have different profiles that they require. Different profiles of sellers, marketers, CROs, VP of sales, etc. I give you an example that's personal to me. When I got to Torque and I got there, the product was phenomenal. But when I get there, I identify that the sales team, it's not wrong. They're not bad people. They're just not the right profile for the early stage as the company was. Zero revenue or very little revenue, right? And they're enterprise sellers. They're the ones that are more used to flows and executing flows that exist versus building a path to a flow that the company did not have yet. So guess what? I told everyone we're gonna just let everyone go and rehire, and everyone freak out. oh my gosh, what you're doing. I said, trust me, this is the right thing, is the right movement. And we did it. We rehired the right profiles into the right places. And guess what? It's such a success story that Torque become. So one thing that's very important that we got to do is people. Finding the right people with the right profiles is very important. So having your talent acquisition person, it's one of the most important things. You don't need to have that internally, but you need to have that function, because a wrong person can delay you 6 months, but the right person can help you achieve more in 1 year. So make sure you have that in mind. So what are your challenges today in each one of those layers? I want to rethink this before I move on to the next part of this podcast, but I want to make sure I stop here, because these 6 layers are something that I designed over the years. And I think if you look at yourselves, if you look at your own companies and look at those 6 layers, what you're doing right and what you may want to change, it's one of the most important things that you can do today. All right, now it comes to a part of this podcast that I like. It's what I call a rapid fire. This section is mostly based on a very, very short phrases that are impactful and we're going to make you think. So I will start, and don't shoot me if I tell something you don't agree or disagree. You can tell me on the comments. You can leave me later a message, right? But I want to make sure I shoot that and I shoot my bullet today, all right? Number 1, hire a fractional CRO before you hire a VP of sales. You need the strategy before headcount. Number 2, your first 10 customers should come from your network. Number 3, run quarterly go-to-market reviews, not QBRs. And the market's shifting too fast that you cannot wait a whole year to review your go-to-market. If your sales cycles are longer than 90 days, you have a qualification problem, not a closing problem. Logos matter more than revenue in your first 2 years of your company. Chase the right names, not just the checks. Free pilots without a success criteria are not pilots. They are unpaid consulting. And last, your website is your number 1 SDR. If you can't explain what you do in 8 seconds, rewrite it. All right, so let's recap the core things we talked today. We talk about locking your ICP before spending money on your GTM. Pick your dominant motion, PLG versus sales-led. We talk about building demand, not just leads. We talk about arming your champions, not just your AEs. We talk about signal-based outbound, not volume spray. And we talk about build communities as a long-term pipeline engine. We talk about treating partners as a distribution channel, not an afterthought. And we talk about the startups that are winning right now are not the ones with the best tech, but the ones that are sharpest GTM motions that actually has a disciplined execution. And I promise you, I'm going to do an episode on how I think that the disciplined execution should come. I'll teach you there. I'm hoping for it. I'm looking forward for that episode because I love it. All right. So if this episode hit different with you, share it with your co-founder. Share with your VP of sales, your board, because go-to-market is a team sport. Please subscribe to this so you don't lose the next episode. I know we get lost on stuff, so I know it's very simple thing to ask, but I'm gonna do this all my heart, and I wish I can teach you something and help you in a certain way. And drop a comment. I want you to come in the comment of this podcast and say, what's your biggest go-to-market challenge right now? DM me on LinkedIn. I'm gonna read in every message that I get sent to, and I will reply to you personally. I'm Paulo Veloso. Let's go build something that sells. See you next week.